I've been putting a lot of hours into Final Fantasy XVI. It's a massive title with a complex story, a deep action combat, and a cute doggo. What more do you need, honestly? Today we're going to go through 5 major mistakes and some tips and tricks along the way for Final Fantasy XVI. Let's go! Let me know any tips and tricks you have in the comments down below so we can all help each other out. And this video is as spoiler-free as possible, so you should be fine to watch it regardless of where you're at in the story. But we'll start with grinding. And a thing that sort of turns me off JRPGs, and to be honest, pretty much every other Final Fantasy game, low-key, is that you have to grind, and you have to grind a lot in a lot of cases just to be able to be respectable and earn enough XP to sort of progress like the main story. In Final Fantasy XVI, you really don't have to at all. You get a solid amount of XP, gil, and ability points just from doing the main story and sort of side quests along the way. After a certain point in the story, when you're at the second hideaway, you can get accessories that increase the amount of XP, gil, or ability points that you earn. And because there's 3 of these, you could put them into your 3 accessory slots and you can just overall increase your amount of XP, gil, and ability points. Now, that's not to say like if you choose to grind and like you want to, you absolutely can and go and get more XP and ability points because you can just farm ability points and then spend on all of those powers. But I really don't think it's necessary. Like anytime that you enter a new area, if you are thinking of grinding, all the enemies will reset plus any of like the items on the ground. So you can sort of get like an unlimited amount of items and just like continually farm enemies that are there. But most of like the gear in the game is gated to your main story progression. So even if you just, do this forever and get to level, 30 when you're supposed to only be like level 20, it won't really matter because you won't be able to get any gear for anything that's about that level. Like obviously you'll have better attributes and you'll have better ability points to spend and that sort of thing, but your overall gear will still be what sort of level you're at because it's linked to the main story progression. So there is still like a reason to maybe do it if you want to, but there isn't really a need to. Like I honestly think just progress the main story because most of the core upgrades to your overall gear and overall power level because of the icon powers come from doing the main story, so I definitely recommend doing that. Next up, let's talk about mastering abilities. So when you're looking at abilities, you can purchase them, you can upgrade them, and then you can master them. If you're wondering what each of those tiers do, if you press triangle to bring up the details, it will tell you what each tier does. Now, in the early stages, roughly until you get to the point where you've got 4 different icons to choose from, you really shouldn't be wasting those resources to master any of these powers, because essentially what that means is it just means that you can apply it to a different icon. So say if you really like the innate power for a certain icon, you can master an ability and then move that ability to the other icon so you can keep that innate power. But there isn't really a point until you've got at least 4 of the different icons to choose from, because you're only going to have those 3 slots anyway, and it doesn't really matter that much, and you're just sort of wasting those ability points when you could be spending it on upgrading the other abilities that you're using or investing into some of like the ultimate abilities like that you get from those trees, like the big tornado from Garuda's line. Like there's plenty of options there that you could choose from to spend those ability points more efficiently. But you don't have to, right? Like you can reset your ability points whenever, it's totally free. So you can do that if you want to like choose and play around with the tree. But also check out my abilities video if you are wondering sort of what abilities you should use in the early to mid game. I've got a full video that breaks all that stuff down. The next one is about crafting versus buying. Now, early in the game, it teaches you to go to the blacksmith to craft new weapons and to upgrade your weapons, which you absolutely should do to upgrade weapons, but don't actually craft weapons or buy weapons from the blacksmith because it will cost a heap of resources. Basically, all of the basic weapons in the game that you could purchase from the blacksmith, you can instead go to Charon and purchase them for gil. Now, this will save you all of those material costs, which you can then use for upgrading. And if you say purchase it at its like base level, you can then go back to the blacksmith and upgrade it anyway to either the first or the second tier or even further. But it's a much simpler method to actually get these, and rather than wasting all of those materials. And the interesting thing with like weapons and resources in general too is one point that I'll make is that in the super early game, I really wouldn't worry about it that much. The game automatically gives you a free purple weapon, armor, and belt just for getting to a certain progression point in the story. It's a like key element that you can't miss. Plus there is some other free ones you get along the way. And there is like one sword that you'll probably need to keep called Stormcry, which you'll continually upgrade throughout the game at certain points as you like defeat certain bosses. And the main thing that I would say is the one thing to always upgrade is your weapon, and keep that weapon at like whatever the highest possible is, and your armor and stuff is like sort of secondary, but the weapon is the most important because that's where all your damage comes from, and then you can sort of deal with everything else after that fact. The main thing that I really found is that after every major story beat, there is going to be a new weapon to purchase. Like it's always a fact. Like after every major story beat, when you turn to the hideaway, there is always going to be a new weapon and occasionally new other gear for you to purchase from the blacksmith. The next is a warning about side quests. Now the game will tell you, but at a certain point you will be locked out of side quests. Side quests will expire if you don't actually go and do them. Now there's a key moment in the story when this does happen. I'm unsure if side quests will expire outside of this as the main story progresses. I haven't actually tested that, but there is a key moment where like the initial sort of basic areas that have side quests will all sort of progress past that point. I'm trying to be very vague for like spoilers, but you will lose access to those areas. And a good tip here is to check the guy, the Alias report guy at the hideaway, and he'll tell you if you have any side quests available, so you can actually go and do them regardless of you having to like go to those areas to do them. Another tip about side quests is that side quests that have like a little plus symbol is a side quest, but it usually means that they will give you some sort of an upgrade. So it's like a different type of side quest. The first one you'll probably notice is this gentleman in Martha's Rest, which will give you the chocobo mount when you complete the quest, and there are others that will give you, say, recipes for the blacksmith, or even side quests that will increase your potion capacity as well as potency, so your potions heal more, as well as increasing the amount that you can actually carry, as well as inventory space. There's plenty out there that if you see this like plus symbol on any side quest, go and do that quest immediately, because it will actually give you some sort of a value add out of it compared to the other side quests, which typically just give you some XP, some guild, maybe some ability points, but later on they will also give you renown, which you can spend at a particular vendor to get like free resources, often like crafting materials, or further down the line they'll actually give you some like really banging accessories. Like one of my favorite that you can get from the renowned vendor is the Berserker ring. So every time you trigger a precision dodge, you'll get like this special animation, and your attacks will sort of like, it seems like a little bit like limit break attacks for a brief period of time, where you're sort of like glowing fire and you'll be able to like smash attacks on them. It's really good for stagger damage, so I'm really a big fan of the Berserker ring, but you'll need to do those side quests to build up that renown in order to be able to unlock it. So there is more benefits of doing it outside of the ones we just talked about. And let's talk about some combat things. Firstly, go into your settings and turn on target follow, so that you will automatically shift the camera to the next target when you kill a target. Just makes combat flow a little bit easier. One thing to check on if you're struggling in combat is the rings of timely whatever. Like there's a fair few of these rings that will give you some sort of a benefit in combat. It might automatically dodge for you, it might make attacking a little bit easier, but if you're struggling with combat, they will definitely help you with that. One that I would actually equip, like regardless of whether you're struggling in combat or not, is the ring of timely assistance. This will mean that you don't have to control toggle, which is a little bit annoying, like having to control the D-pad when you're like in the middle of combat. Now you can actually combo Toggle's attacks, like weave them into your actual combos. But if you equip this ring, Toggle will use his attacks on his own, like he'll heal on his own, he'll seek on his own, he'll ravage on his own, but he'll also interlace them on his own into your combos. So you'll still trigger those effects. It really just like is a huge benefit, because Toggle will then attack things on his own much more often and use these effects. Whereas without this, you're sort of stuck and you have to remember to actually trigger Toggle's effects, which I often struggle with. Like I was too busy thinking about using my powers and dodging and attacking and da-da-da, and then just completely forgot about Toggle, and he's just sort of like standing there and you forget to weave those attacks in. Now, it is obviously up to you if you want to do that. If you feel that it's, you know, like handicapping you a little bit, you can actually just weave the attacks in yourself. But in general, like accessories are huge for your overall combat effectiveness. Not only can they increase your overall damage, you can get ones that increase your healing potency. We already talked about the XP, guild, and ability points one. If you are looking for any sort of a benefit to your overall kit, definitely invest in different accessories, because there's plenty of really good options in there. But otherwise, in combat, investing in stagger is really important for bosses. Like I can't tell you how much that stagger is hugely important. Because of how much health most enemies have, stagger is your main benefit. Once you can stagger an enemy and knock them down, you then get that multiplier effect where every time you hit them, you'll increase that overall effect to like 1.5, and then you should dump all of your big damage dealing effects once you've got that effect up as high as possible. The best way to build up that multiplier quickly is by quick hitting attacks, like in the Garuda line, like that quick hitting claws, or whatever other attack that you can have, like the Will of the Wikes, that will build up that bar as quickly as possible, and then dump your big damage dealing hits, deal as much damage as possible. But I can't stress enough how important staggering enemies is. It's really, really important. I hope I've stressed that enough. All right, thank you guys for watching this video till the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is Norza, and I hope you have a great day.